Dear brothers and sisters, one of the most interesting characters is a man named Thomas Merton. I'm sure you've heard of him. Let me tell you some things about him. At age 16, he became an orphan. At age 20, he became a communist. At age 23, he discovered Jesus Christ for the first time. At age 24, he became a reporter for the New York Times. Somewhere around that time, I'm going to guess at age 25, he spent time in Olean, New York. And if you talk to a native of Olean, like Father Paul Saigon, and you say, tell me where Merton's Mountain is, the people of Olean understand that, and they'll point out to you where he used to go hiking. At any rate, age 27, he put all of his worldly goods in a duffel bag, went to Kentucky, became a Trappist monk, and spent the rest of his life in that capacity. Merton wrote a best-selling spiritual autobiography called The Seven-Story Mountain, and in it he describes the first step, anyway, in his conversion process. When he finished high school, he did a trip to Europe and stayed there for a protracted period of time, leading a rather immoral existence. And one night in his hotel room, he was struck with an awareness of his own sinfulness. Here's what he writes. The whole thing passed in a flash. I was overwhelmed with a sudden and profound insight into the misery and corruption of my soul. I was filled with horror at what I saw. My soul desired escape from all of that. He goes on to say that on that night, for the first time in his life, he's what? He's probably 18 at this point. The first time in his life, he prayed. He prayed to the God that he had never known and asked him to reach down from heaven and free him from the evil power that held his body and his soul in slavery. That incident, I think, is an illustration of the change of heart that the younger son had in today's gospel, where first he says, I'm not going to do what my father wants, and he reconsiders it. Yeah, I think I will. And also, it's an illustration of the kind of conversion that Ezekiel is referring to in our first reading today. You might wonder, what causes a person to undergo a change of heart? The first step is that they become aware of something that's wrong in their own personal life. They become dissatisfied with some aspect of their life at present. And the second step might be called a trigger event. It's the spark that lights the fire under us to do something about our situation. And that's what happened to Merton in the hotel room. In the language of theology, it was a moment of grace from God. And then the third step is taking some concrete step to go in the other direction, even if it's only one step. And again, you see that in the life of Merton. The morning after his hotel room experience, he walked outside into the morning sunlight. His soul was broken with sorrow and contrition. But he said it was a good feeling. It was like having a boil lanced by a doctor. And even though he was not a Catholic, he went to a church. He knelt down and he prayed the Lord's Prayer slowly with all of the faith that he had. After his prayer, he walked out into the sunlight again. He said he felt reborn and he rejoiced in his newfound peace of soul. It was a peace he had never known before. Now, Merton still had a long way to go before his conversion was complete. He was not a Catholic at this point. But he made the first step. He took a move in the right direction. Now, here's the takeaway. Here's the thing we need to remember. Søren Kierkegaard was a Danish theologian. Here's one of his lines that I always liked. He said, "There's no such thing as being a Christian. There is only becoming a Christian." And by that he meant that wherever we are in our spiritual life, in our journey toward God, we can always get closer to Him. We can always become closer to Him. Wherever we are, always come closer. And there's a particular danger, I think, a temptation of people to say, well, I wasn't like Thomas Merton leading an immoral life in Europe. That's far from me. I've always been a Catholic. And such a person may be tempted to say, I'm fine the way I am. But God is never finished with us until the day we die. And that's why among the 7 capital sins is the sin of sloth. In common ordinary English, sloth is like another word for laziness. But as one of the 7 sins, it's a special kind of laziness. It's a spiritual laziness. It's a laziness that says, oh, I'm fine the way I am. Look at all those other people. I'm so much better than they are. I don't need to grow anymore. And I think it's a special temptation to people who are retired. They kind of say, I can coast now. My work is done. Well, your work might be done, but God's not finished with you. And so let's review then the conversion process. It's an ongoing journey that will end only when we die. The first step is some dissatisfaction with our present life. So we would ask ourselves, what is there that I'm not satisfied with the way I am? What do I most want to change? That awareness is the first step. And the second step is a trigger, like the hotel room was for Merton, and it's really the grace of God that impels us to take a step in the opposite direction. I want to close with a prayer, and this prayer, you'll recognize this prayer, I think, because it comes from the 1960s, I think it was 60s, musical Godspell. And when they were putting Godspell together, they wanted a prayer. They wanted to put it to music so people would remember it. And they went way back to a prayer written 1,000 years ago by a dude by the name of St. Richard of Chichester. I have no idea where Chichester is. It's got to be in England, though, I would think. And so they took his prayer and they updated it and they cleaned up. They wrote it in English that people could understand. And they put it to music, and here's the prayer. Pray this with me, please. Oh, dear Lord, 3 things I pray: to see Thee more clearly, to love Thee more dearly, and to follow Thee more nearly, day by day. Day by day by day by day. Amen.